All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, God of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to you in the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the House of Faith. Count it truly a blessing each and every single time that I come before you. Never to count it a light thing. Never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's topic on this day, so-called Thanksgiving, and I really want to deal with the origins of this day. And one thing to me personally is it's extremely hypocritical for individuals to claim to be believers in what the Bible says and to observe Thanksgiving, but you don't observe the days that he actually set forth. Okay. So I guess I want to start off further, and that's not to mention how, the celebration of this is really some foolishness when you think about the history between the settlers that came over here from and the indigenous people, particularly the British. Okay, it was a very sordid history. But I just want to read a little bit about this day, and I'm gonna go to some news articles. Okay, then I'm gonna go to the scripture. So this is from the World Book Encyclopedia. It's just basic stuff that people don't even realize about Thanksgiving. Number one is that what you think about Thanksgiving and the narrative that's told is false. Okay, so we're gonna get into that. But just the basics. Thanksgiving Day. This is on page 229 under Thanksgiving Day. Thanksgiving Day in the United States and Canada, a day is set aside each year as Thanksgiving Day. On this day, people give thanks with feasting and prayer for the blessings that they may have received during the year. Okay, so I want to skip down a little bit. It says one of the first Thanksgiving observances in America was entirely religious and did not involve feasting on December 4th, 1619. 39 English settlers arrived at Berkeley Plantation on the James River near what is now Charles City. Ironically, 1619 is when they bought the first indentured servants. The British did. They bought them. They purchased them. They had Spanish names. They were probably stolen off a boat. They purchased them and made them indentured servants from the continent of Africa. Okay, this paved the way for the full scale transatlantic slave trade. Okay. But then it says, let's see. I did want to pick up a year. The first Thanksgiving in England, Thanksgiving was celebrated less than a year after the Plymouth colonists had settled in the new land. The first dreadful winter in Massachusetts had killed nearly half of the members of the colony. Okay, but New Hope grew up in the summer of 1621. The corn harvest brought rejoicing. Governor William Bradford decreed that a 3-day feast be held. A Thanksgiving day for prayer as well as celebration was decreed by Governor Bradford, July 30th, 1623. Let's see. Let's go to in 1789. President George Washington issued the General Proclamation naming November 26th a day of national Thanksgiving. In the same year, the Protestant Episcopal Church announced that the first Thursday in November would be a regular day for giving thanks. For many years, the country had no regular national Thanksgiving Day, but some states had a yearly Thanksgiving holiday. By 1830, New York had an official state Thanksgiving Day, and other northern states soon followed its example. In 1855, Virginia became the first southern state to adopt the custom. I want to say then Abraham Lincoln proclaimed the last Thursday in November 1863 as a day of Thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father. Okay, still had slavery at that time in this country, so it's just peace to you. It's just ironic that people, of the diaspora, descendants of slaves would honor this day. Is this a day just like similar to Independence Day? And at that time you had no independence. And really, when you really look at the sort of history, let's go a little bit deeper into the history. This is one article from the New York Times, and it reads, everything you learned about Thanksgiving is wrong. Okay. It says, so this is again the New York Times. This one came out last year. It says, not to rain on our Thanksgiving Day parade, but the story of the first Thanksgiving as most Americans have been taught it is not exactly accurate. blame school textbooks with details often so abridged, softened, or out of context that they are ultimately made false. Children's books that simplify the story to its most pleasant version, or animated television specials like The Mouse on the Mayflower, which first aired in 1968, that not only misinformed a generation, but also enforced a slew of cringe-worthy stereotypes. High school textbooks are particularly bad about stating absolutes because these materials teach history, that's in quote, they put in the quotation marks, by giving students facts to memorize even when the details may be unclear, said James W. Lohman, a sociologist and the author of Lies My Teacher Told Me, Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong. Pretty famous book. All right. That mindset pervades everything that they talk about, and certainly Thanksgiving, he said. The timeline is relative. The Mayflower did not bring the Pilgrims to North America from Plymouth, England in 1620. And they disembarked at what is now Plymouth, Massachusetts, where they set up a colony. In 1621, they celebrated a successful harvest with a 3-day gathering. We kind of touched upon that was attended by members of the Wampanoag tribe. It's from this that we derive Thanksgiving as we know it. But it wasn't until the 1830s that the event was called the first Thanksgiving by New Englanders, who looked back and thought it resembled their version of the holiday, said Kate Sheehan, a spokesperson for Plymouth Plantation, a living history museum in Plymouth. The holiday wasn't made official until 1863, when President Abraham Lincoln declared it as a kind of thank you for the Civil War victories in Vicksburg, Mississippi, and Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Beyond that, claiming it was the first Thanksgiving isn't quite right, either, as both North Americans and European societies had been holding festivals to celebrate successful harvests for centuries, said Lohman. Now, I didn't read it in here, but let me go back to that, because here, World Book Encyclopedia says the exact same thing. Peace to you, brother and sister. So it says here, under Thanksgiving Day, for thousands of years, people in many lands have held harvest festivals. The American Thanksgiving Day probably grew out of the harvest home celebrations of England. Okay? So now, when you think about that, harvest festivals, oftentimes, if you look at the origins, when you look at pagan customs and different things, you had gods that they would celebrate at this particular time. For example, Ceres, where we got cereal from. The word cereal comes from the pagan god Ceres, of agriculture, god of agriculture. Okay? But nevertheless, it says a prevalent opposing viewpoint is that the first Thanksgiving stemmed from the massacre of the Piquet people in 1637, the culmination of the Piquet War. While it is true that a day of Thanksgiving was noted in the Massachusetts Bay and the Plymouth colonies afterward, it is not accurate to say it was the basis for our modern Thanksgiving, Mr. Sheehan said. And Plymouth, Mr. Lomas noted, was already a village with clear fields in the spring when the Pilgrims found it. Listen to this. A lovely place to settle, he said. Why was it available? Because every single native person who had been living there was a corpse. Plagues wiped them out. So when you look at what what the settlers did when they came here in one place, they came and they left smallpox and killed all the people. But let's keep going. It wasn't just about religious freedom. It's been taught that the Pilgrims came because they were seeking religious freedom. That's not entirely true. The Pilgrims had religious freedom in Holland, where they first arrived in the early 17th century. Now that was an issue because from other things I've looked at, they were afraid about losing their custom or their ways and that they had. You know how it is, like Negroes in America, you become like the people who you live among. They were also coming here in order to establish a religious theocracy. Well, excuse me, I'm gonna go back. The Pilgrims came to North America to make money. They were also coming in order to establish a religious theocracy, which they did. That's not exactly the same as coming here for religious freedom. It's kind of coming here against religious freedom. Also, the Pilgrims never called themselves Pilgrims. They were separatists. They were called separatists. in England, and under King James, they were they were even catching it under that regime. But the term pilgrims didn't surface until around 1880. There's no evidence that the native people were invited. Possibly the most common misconception that the pilgrims extended an invitation to the Native Americans for helping them reap the harvest. The truth of how they all ended up feasting together is unknown. The English written record does not mention an invitation, and Wampanoag oral tradition does not seem to reach back to this event. Ms. Sheehan said, but there are reasons the Wampanoag leader could have been there. And his people have been planting on the other side of the brook from the colony. Another possibility is that after his harvest was gathered, he was making diplomatic calls. It is true that the celebration was an exceptional cross-cultural moment with food, games, and prayer. Listen to this, the deadly conflicts that came after, though, created an undercurrent that is glossed over. We might as well take shards of fairness and idealism and so on whenever we find them in our past and recognize that and give credit to them, he said. The role of Squanto is complicated. Tisquantum, known as Squanto, did play a large role in helping the pilgrims as American children are taught. His people, the Patuxet band of Wampanoag tribe, had lived on the site where the pilgrims settled. When they arrived, he became a translator for them in diplomacy and trade with other native people, and showed them the most effective method of planting corn and the best locations to fish. Okay, that's usually where the lesson ends, but that's just a fraction of the story. He was captured, listen to this, he was captured by the English in 1614 and later sold into slavery in Spain. He spent several years in England where he learned English. So he was an important character because he knew both languages. He returned to New England in 1619 only to find his entire tribe wiped out from some smallpox. He met the pilgrims in March of 1621. Okay. There's also no evidence that a turkey was served. There was no mention of turkey being at the 1621 bounty, and there was no pie. Settlers lacked butter and wheat flour for a crust, and they had no oven for baking. What is known is that the pilgrims harvested crops that the Wampanoag brought 5 deer. Okay, let's see. So a lot of the things that we think are not accurate. I want to read one more thing and then get into the scriptures. This is from the perspective of somebody, of an indigenous person. This is from the Boston Globe. And it says a true story of the first Thanksgiving and what it meant. Okay, so this came out yesterday. In classrooms and dinner tables across the country this week, people will celebrate a story that is misunderstood and incomplete, but nonetheless one that has been promoted for centuries. While there is a convening between the Wampanoag and the newly arriving pilgrims, while there was a convening between these two groups that included sharing of food, the story is promoted today as a stretch, and the real and complete story is absent from the pages of history. A story that includes shame, greed, disrespect, and dishonor, all in the name of forging a democracy where all could be free, except for the indigenous occupants who occupied these lands since time immemorial. Now, this is written by Jesse Little Dope Beard, or Beard. It's B-A-I-R-D. So he's an indigenous person. So he's telling it from his perspective. He says the story of Thanksgiving is rooted with the pilgrims landing on the shores. We talked about that in North America. It became a holiday story as understood 2 centuries later in the country divided by civil war in 1863. In an attempt to unite the country and smooth strained relations between North and South, President Lincoln proclaimed Thanksgiving a national holiday. It was at this time the imagery of pilgrims and Native people celebrating together took root. Since 1863, political figures and others have shaped the public narrative around Thanksgiving. Let's go down a little bit. He says, as an elder of one of the leaders of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribal nation, I believe Native people's stories are incredibly important. I have witnessed firsthand the negative implications of what can happen when our stories are told incorrectly by others. The early 1600s, peace to you, brother. The early 1600s brought newcomers who left their home in England to Wampanoag territory. After anchoring and going ashore near Nauset or Cape Cod in 1620 of November, a 9-year-old pilgrim boy became separated from the group. The Wampanoag cared for him for several weeks before returning him to the pilgrims. Common interest in this child fostered a feeling of compassion for the pilgrims and our tribal leadership, who agreed that the Wampanoag would feed and protect the pilgrims. The pilgrims, in turn, agreed to remain on the land in a peaceful and respectful way. This treaty was the first made between a tribal nation and the pilgrims. And we know they broke every treaty. The following fall, Wampanoag residents observed pilgrim men leaving their village with weapons. They were concerned that the pilgrims were making plans for war. Within a few days, 92 Wampanoag chiefs arrived to ask the pilgrims who had brought them to a place of unrest. The pilgrims said they were only practicing using their arms. While this meant no war was impending, the Wampanoag chiefs needed to rest before returning home. Several Wampanoag set out and brought back venison and fowl as birds. The pilgrim men offered to share their ale in trade for some meat, and the two groups ultimately spent the next several days sharing their provisions. This was the shared meal that occurred between the Wampanoag and the pilgrims. It was not formal, but it was eaten peacefully. So he's saying what we are calling what they're calling Thanksgiving was no formal thing. It was people sitting down eating peacefully. This is a story of peace and cooperation between different peoples making an effort to uphold the promise of protection and support they offered each other through treaty. And these two groups did have a treaty together, the Wampanoag and the settlers. This is a story that can unite and inspire in these divided times, but what is often left out of the Thanksgiving narrative is that Native peoples, listen to this, Native peoples subsequently faced losses of land, broken treaties, and threats to our sovereignty as independent tribal nations, all at the hands of the U.S. federal government. In fact, injustice at the hands of the federal government is happening today. So now people getting together talking about Thanksgiving, he's saying the same disrespect and injustice is occurring right now. He said on November 14th, the Mashpee Wampanoag led a march to the Capitol to call on Congress to prevent our reservation from being dissolved by the Trump administration. We have been fighting this battle since September 2018, when the Department of Interior decided to take land held in trust for Mashpee Wampanoag Nation out of trust, effectively dissolving our reservation. But you want to sit there and talk about, well, I got a day off, so I'm going to eat some turkey. You know how many Negroes asked me, was I having what we going to do for Thanksgiving? Nothing. And when I tell them that, they look at me like I'm crazy, because they don't know the history of things. They don't really, quite frankly, we don't care to know the history of things. This Thanksgiving, we are calling upon all Americans to share this story to help our voices be heard and to stop this injustice. Congress needs to enact legislation that will restore our lands and affirm the spirit of the cooperation now so famously celebrated and embodied in Thanksgiving. He says, as citizens of our tribal nation and of America, we will fight this battle as we have with dignity, diplomacy, and the knowledge that the story of Native people in America is a story of strength and resilience in the face of challenges. It is a story built around our strong commitment to family, shared responsibility to care for the land, and our sense of obligation to do right by the next generation. It is a story that is woven into the fabric of American story with threads that extend beyond the first peoples of America. In these uncertain, divided times, of Thanksgiving story rooted in mutual respect regarding humanity that can unite all people, Americans. But at the same time, what did he say? He said, man, the injustice is going on right now. They still taking their land, even until this day. 400 years, still taking their land. Now let's go to the scriptures, brothers and sisters. Because one thing about it is that it is ludicrous to engage in these days for a variety of reasons. Number one, like I said, this grew out of harvest festivals. Harvest festivals are an ancient thing, brothers and sisters. They did not start and that's one theory that is going out of harvest festival, but they did start with quote unquote Thanksgiving, right? And even from this man's perspective, from their perspective, this is one man giving from a particular indigenous tribe. He's giving a perspective of like, this was not a formal thing. Number two, how do you disregard the days that he did set up? Now, it is true that he is deserving of all honor to give thanks. So let's go to Psalms 100 chapter, 100 division. Let's read something here about God. He says, make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Then it says, enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him and bless his name. For the Lord is good. His mercy is everlasting, and his truth endure to all generations. This is true. But then he tells you to go and celebrate Thanksgiving, a custom that he never sanctioned. We'll read what he did put into play. Let's see what you get. See, for dealing in foolishness, even if you look at this strictly politically, how in the world can you celebrate a day that has led to the massacring of this particular people? And it was going on while you were enslaved. But the same Negroes will go and celebrate, like I said, will go and celebrate Independence Day. That's why Frederick Douglass, he delivered the speech, what to the slave is the 4th of July. Why? He was before abolitionist and was asked to give a speech about the 4th. Why would I come here talking about freedom when all my people are in bondage? Now I'm paraphrasing me. So he said, if I forget them, he said, he referenced the Bible. He said, let my right hand forget its cunning. You know, let my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth. If I forget what? He said, if I forget my people. He said, if I forget my people. And he said, if I forget them, you know what it's like? He said, it's like treason. He said, it's like treason if I forget my people. We are totally lost. We don't have a clue about what we're doing spiritually. We're just going after foolishness, being led by blind leaders. But here, the Messiah tells you what you're going to get, because people say, well, don't you love God? Ain't you want to give thanks? Yeah. Yes, I love him, so I try to keep his commandments. See, I don't love him and then make up days in honor of God and then disregard what he told me to do. Again, I always use this example. It's just like a parent. It's like if they tell your father, tell you, son, take out the trash. Okay? And you say, well, I'm not going to take out the trash. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mess up my room. I'm going to throw all the clothes on the floor. I'm going to write on the walls. And I'm going to say, this is in honor of my father. He going to come home and say, boy, you didn't take out that trash like I told you? No, but I did this to my room in honor of you. I love you. That's what people doing spiritually right now. How in the world are you dealing in Thanksgiving and you can't find that? You call yourself a believer, a follower of God, believer in the Messiah, and you can't find any of what you're talking about in the Bible. You want to make up something. And that's man's problem. He wants to make up something. She wants to follow something that's made up. But he tells you what you're going to get for this. This is Matthew the 15th chapter. And we want to pick it up at verse, I'll pick it up at verse 7. Because he told the Pharisees something. The scribes and Pharisees, they were talking about a tradition. See, somebody, on my job, they texted me, they don't know I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Man, I have a happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. He doesn't know. Because we never really discussed it. But it says, ye hypocrites. Right? Because they were talking about some tradition, just like Thanksgiving is tradition. He said, ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people drive nigh unto me with their mouth and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. So they hold hands around. Listen, they done watched the game. They done got drunk, got their little buzz on. They hold their hands around a turkey and a big slab of swine. You know how they get the big slab of swine with the pineapples on the top and the cherry toothpicks in it, right? They eat some. You know they got some chitlins. You know they got some chitlins. It's chitlins, and there's millions of Negroes right now eating chitlins right now. Today, I should say. They were eating chitlins. You know, they put the hot sauce on it. You know? They eating chitlins, eating swine, holding hands, praying. Now, you tell why you gave thanks. And that little bad rascal, no good kid that they ain't nurtured, he gonna say, he gonna make up something why I thank God for my iPhone and my Jordans and my $500 Louis Vuitton belt. I thank God that mama ain't killed me for all these F's and D's. She keep coddling me. You know, what you give thanks for? You know, I give thanks for, you know, they just making up stuff, giving thanks for. I give thanks for my new car, my Lexus. You know, they give thanks for certain things. Negroes, man, what you giving thanks for? What you giving thanks for? So they hold hands. Say, I remember when I was coming up, they say, give a Bible verse. Everybody say a Bible verse. And I didn't know anything. I just, Jesus wept every year. Jesus wept. Next, Jesus wept. Maybe, you know, Big Daddy might know a Bible verse. You know, he's a deacon in the church. He might know a Bible verse. Everybody else, Jesus wept. Negroes don't know nothing. Yeah, that's a double negative. Negroes don't know nothing. All right. So, ye hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, this people draw nigh unto me with their mouth. So you draw nigh unto him with your, or near him with your mouth. You're talking about God. It says, and honor me with their lips. We love you, Lord. We thank you for all you've done. We thank you for Barack Obama in the 8 years that we had, Lord. Thank you. It said, but their heart is far from me. Their mind is far from me. Why? Because they are not into his instruction or his Torah. They're not into his word. So how could your heart or your mind be next to him? He's manifested himself unto you through his word, brothers and sisters. He's done it in a variety of ways. One of the main ways that you can wrap your mind around is the word of God. He's telling you specifically what you should. I mean, he's not making it unclear to you. It's clear what you should do. He said, these people draw nigh to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Then he says something. But in vain, they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. So your worship of God in that setting, oh, thank God we didn't come together and we thank you, Lord. We thank you. But wait a minute. You didn't come together according to what he said to do. You came together according to what you wanted to do. So and to do that is vain, meaning it's for naught or for nothing. You won't receive. You think you're going to be blessed for celebrating Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter and Sunday worship? You are a rebel. You are rebelling against God in that foolishness. Why? Because you are doing completely opposite of what he commanded. Let's go to Colossians. You're a rebel. You're a rebel. And then what they doing tonight? They gonna go out. They gonna say we got our buzz on. We didn't got our buzz on. We didn't got we didn't got fat. You know, you had to loosen your belt. You sit there and just be a glutton. You know, you sit there and eat. You ain't even, man. People get together on these days. They just eat. I remember eat. Somebody come in with a pie. Oh, I gotta eat some more. Negro, no, you don't. You pass full. It's like you ever try to put more gas in your car than it can hold. That's what you're doing. But I'm gonna just loosen this notch. I'm gonna sit back, pass gas, fall asleep, because you're gonna get that itis, fall asleep, then get back up, and what you gonna do? You gonna get some more dessert. You glutton. And you gonna feel good, and family all around, you gonna feel good. And you gonna look at the clock. Oh, okay, now the sales been ready to start. I remember working. I was in the Word. I remember I graduated from college. I went back to school, and I was working 3 jobs, and one of them was in retail. Man, they had us there at 4 a.m. They had us there at 4 a.m. Actually, it might have been 3 a.m. It was packed. I mean, people going crazy, and they really started earlier than that. Some places they just started right now on Thursday. They can't wait till Black Friday. They started right now. That's just like I remember I was walking in the store and I was people shopping for cranberry. All the cranberry sauce gone. All the turkey's gone. right? You know, all the stuff associated with Thanksgiving I'm walking, I'm just buying groceries. I was actually buying groceries for that one day. Probably have to go back again tomorrow. I'm buy a few things for the night and maybe in the morning. And I'm telling you, this is how people are. I couldn't even get in the store without somebody stepping on the back of my feet. Literally. Trying to get in the store. I ain't said excuse me. I ain't said nothing. I ain't even paid no attention. Just stepping on the back of my heels. Shoe coming off. Because they trying to get in the store and buy some chitlins. Can't wait. People driving crazy. For all this time, that's one of the things I can't stand this time of year. Why? Just because of how people behave. Like I'm about to have to go out tomorrow morning, and what you gonna see? A bunch of people mad, going through the stores, driving crazy. People are the most ignorant and rude this time of year, but this is supposed to be the time of Thanksgiving. A time of peace on earth. There's hell on earth. People getting their house broken in. People going broke for these bad kids. You need to be getting them some discipline, some education. And so most importantly, the word of God. But you buying them stuff they don't need, that they don't appreciate, and they value as, let me tell you something, their value is wrapped up in what they have. One thing my mother taught me, is that you're not defined by what you have. But nevertheless, let's go here. This is Colossians 2. Because what you're doing is vain. What you're doing is vain. Now here he tells the church or the congregation at Colossae, he says, in verse 16, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink, or in respect of a holy day, or the new moon, or of the Sabbath days. Now, he's telling people, this don't mean, see, you can celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's not what that's talking about. What this is talking about is him coming to a people who had their own customs. And now he's bringing the faith, okay? Because understand, the early Christians will not keep, matter of fact, Christmas, for example, was illegal in this country for a long time. Okay? So they weren't, it was people who already had their own customs. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or the new moon or the Sabbath days. See, he's talking about the holy days, the Sabbath days, the days that are outlined in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. He says something about them. He says, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. See, these are a shadow of things to come. These outline the plan of salvation for man. Not Thanksgiving, not Christmas, not Easter. Let's go to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Because he says something. He says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations or holy gatherings, even these are my feasts. See, he has feasts that you're supposed to keep. And even the stranger, he tells you the book of Isaiah is supposed to keep them when you believe. Now, he gives you the weekly Sabbath where you're supposed to not work and you're supposed to hold a holy convocation. But you're going on Sunday. Then he starts stipulating the annual Sabbaths that come once a year. He talks about the Passover. Right after that, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Then you have Pentecost. Then you have blowing the trumpets, Day of Atonement. Then he says something. In verse 33 of Leviticus 23, Leviticus 23 and 33 says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, again, he's being instructed, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. On the first day shall be an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. Okay? It says 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. The 8th day shall be an holy convocation or holy gathering. So you feast for 7 days. First day you have a holy convocation. The 8th day you have a holy convocation. And ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly. And ye shall do no servile work therein. Then he says, these are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Okay? Now, let's go to Exodus, the 32nd chapter, to find out something specifically about the Feast of Tabernacles. Leviticus, the 32nd chapter. Actually, 34th chapter. I said 32, I meant 34, I believe. Yeah, 34. So it says in verse 22, Exodus 34:22, and thou shalt observe the feast of weeks of the first fruits of wheat harvest and the feast of ingathering at the year's end. Thrice in a year shall all your men children appear before the Lord God, the God of Israel. Now, wait a minute. But when is this happening? That's at the end of the year. So what feast, what harvest festival, not some pagan, ancient, archaic harvest festival. You're supposed to observe the Feast of Tabernacles. How in the world do you're going to celebrate something when it was established you were in bondage on this land? You were in bondage on this land. You're going to keep for many years. You're going to establish that and observe that, I should say. And yet what your God stipulated, you're going to ignore that. That's why Negroes in the position they're in right now. That's why we're in the position we're in right now, because we continue to follow the pagan customs of these other people, and we are the people of this book. We are the only people that God manifested himself unto directly, and we continue to rebel against what he told us to do. Let's go to, because I did want to show you the significance. Well, let's see. I did want to show you the significance of the harvest, of a harvest in general, and what God has done. This is Psalms 107. And we're going to pick it up at verse 37, I believe. 107 and 37. It says, and sow the fields and plant vineyards which may yield fruits of increase. He blessed them also, so that they are multiplied greatly, and suffereth not their cattle to decrease. See, he is the one that causes that to come out of the ground, the fruit, the agriculture. He's the reason for all this. But that doesn't mean because he's done it that you just make up something. See, that's what people who don't know God do. They just make up something and then stamp God's name on it. And people will follow it. He never told you to keep Thanksgiving November 22nd or every last Thursday. He didn't tell you to do that. Hold on one second. Let me go back. You said this. I'm gonna answer this brother question. He says Leviticus 23 are these feasts as well. I know they are weekly Sabbaths. Okay, so you're talking about the weekly Sabbath. So it says, when he says in verse 2, he says, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts. Okay, 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, you can email me that. I could do it that way. But just understand that, oftentimes we thinking about feasts. We thinking about, is he saying we're going to feast in that time and eat? That's not what he's talking about. Because you got to think about it too. He says it in a general sense of what, and that he uses that, well, at least in the English, he's using that language. And then it's talking about also the Day of Atonement is in here too. Right? Right? The Day of Atonement. You know you're not eating on that day. So understand the main thing is to understand what you're supposed to do on that day. And what you're supposed to do on that day is hold a holy convocation where you acknowledging God. And Shabbat means to rest. You cease from your labors. Okay? So he says it in a general sense, but then specifically, you know what you're supposed to do on each day. And that's what you should get out of that. But nevertheless, Psalms 107, but you can still email me. Psalms 107 and verse 37. He says, and sow the fields and plant vineyards, which may yield fruit of increase. he blesseth them also, so that they are multiplied greatly, and suffereth not their cattle to decrease. See, he is the reason why you had a harvest in the first place. And if he's the reason why you had a harvest in the first place, he is to be thanked. He is one that needs to be shown proper honor. All right. Let's go to let's see. Amos, the 4th chapter. And I'm going to pick it up at verse 9. Because through his power, he can also withhold these things. And here you see the chastening of the Lord. Here it says in verse 9, 4 and 9, Amos 4 and 9, I have smitten you with blasting and mildew when your gardens and your vineyards and your fig trees and your olive trees increase, the palmer worm devour them. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. He says, so I did these things unto you, and you still haven't returned unto me. You still haven't turned unto me. You still haven't done what you're supposed to do. He says, verse 7, he says in verse 7, and also I have withholden the rain from you, and when there were yet 3 months to the harvest, and I have caused it to rain upon one city, and caused it not to rain upon another city. And one piece was rained upon, and the piece whereupon it rained not with it. See, he's the one that can determine what you get. We think the vote determines what we get. That's what we really think now. We think our education determines what we get. Brothers and sisters, there are certain principles that even the Bible talks about working, right? About being diligent. You read that in the Proverbs. But understand, our situation is what it is because we've sinned against our God. But let's go to 23 just to show you. Now, this is something separate. I just wanted to show you a couple of things about the harvest. If I can find it. Let's see. Let's go to actually Deuteronomy 24. Let's go to Deuteronomy 24. Just to show you. Oh, something 23 too. But Deuteronomy 24. Go there first, please. Deuteronomy 24. And you pick it up at verse Deuteronomy 24 and verse, I believe, 19. Deuteronomy 24 and verse 19. So it says, when thou cuttest down thine harvest in the field, and hast forgot a sheaf in the field. So now you forgot something in the field. Listen to what he says. Thou shalt not again to fetch it, not go again to fetch it. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widow, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all the work of thine hands. So when you're talking about the harvest of God, and you reaping the harvest, it is good to bless those who don't have, those who are lacking, like God has done. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Thank you. All praise to the Most High. Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, in verse 22, it says, and when ye reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not clean riddance of the corners of thy field. When thou reapest, it says, when thou reapest, neither shalt thou gather any gleaning of thy harvest. He says, thou shalt leave them unto the poor and to the stranger. I'm the Lord your God. So he had a welfare system built into the provisions for people. Now let's go to Ruth. Let's go to Ruth just to show you that Ruth, the first chapter, and see an example of this. Ruth, Let's go to Ruth, the first chapter, verse 22. It says, so Naomi returned to Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law. See, this story is largely about the duty of brothers or next of kin. Peace to you. Okay, Susan H. I'm gonna come to your question in 1 second. Let me finish this, then I'm gonna answer your question. Hold tight. So it says, so Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. Okay, so then she comes. Hold on 1 second. So it says now in chapter 2 and 1, it says now, and Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field and glean. Okay, let me go to the field and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. So what was she doing? She was doing what was in the law, to glean the field, to have something. So it's good. The less is blessed by the better. So if you have something to give to somebody, that's good. But he even had that system. He had that in the Torah to say, hey, listen, you have to provide for the poor. Now, the sister asked a question. She said, what if you come together with family and just minister to them? Is that okay? Okay, so no. No. Because what you're doing and showing them or going there is showing them that you in agreement center. So why are you gonna go there and then you're gonna it's like a man I saw, he took a bullhorn, and I'm not saying this is an extreme, so bear with me. He took a bullhorn to he was a Christian minister. I guess he was a minister, but he was trying to evangelize. He took a bullhorn to at the gay pride parade in New York, and this man walked up to him. He took a big swig of water, switched it around his mouth, and spit in that man. And the man was not looking right. Let me just say that. This is the gay pride parade. And he spit in the man's face with the bullhorn. One thing, your appearance there ultimately says that you agree with what's going on. See, you would say more by simply not showing up. And what you're going to do is you're going to be there getting on people's nerves. That's what you're going to do. See, I remember I was in that position. I remember when I realized I was coming into some understanding, I said, you know what? Now I was sitting there. This was Christmas. This was years. What year is this? This is almost 20 years ago. Now I was just like, I looked around and said, hey, I'm not coming no more. This is gonna be my last Christmas. And they were like, they weren't really paying no attention. I said, cause this is pagan. I said, I'm not coming here no more. I was trying to get some understanding, on my own, a little bit in regard to that, reading stuff, and I had been exposed to some things. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this no more. And then I just never showed back up. That says more than you. That says more than anything. Because people, when you don't, they expect you to come back. But you don't want to go there and call yourself ministering to them, doing nothing. No, don't go there because yo showing up show you in agreement with it. She said Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindu people. If you don't have God's law, yeah, you don't know how to be right. She said, I live with them. Christians are horrible people. People are horrible. People, period, are horrible. That's the human condition. But yeah, sister, I wouldn't advise you do that. Because again, you're showing that you're in agreement with it. You trust me, you could say more by not showing up. Yeah, you don't want to go in there and everybody celebrating Christmas. I'm just here to minister to you. That's not even the setting or the No, you don't want to do that. You know, she said they're horrible. She done were horrible again. But yeah, you want to abstain from any appearance of evil. You don't want to, because really, you saying again, that's the main thing. You saying you agree with it if you there already, and then if you just there not saying it, if people, you know, that's one thing about it. I learned that too. You can't force anybody to do anything. They have to want it. Jesus said to Pilate, "Did I say these things of thyself, or did others tell thee of me?" Like, are you going by what somebody else said, or are you going by what you believe? But what's happening here? You know, if somebody wants to, peace to you, brother. If somebody wants to deal with the truth, listen, the Lord will make a way. The Lord, I've seen it time and time again. And you going there is not going to be helpful. You going there is not going to be helpful. Now, you know, talking to somebody one-on-one or something like that, but I wouldn't advise going in there. I'm just here to minister to y'all. You know, they come there for one thing, you going to go there, and yeah, they not going to, I would not advise it at all. Again, yo not showing up, period, says enough. You know, don't go. That's what I would say. Don't even deal with it. Yeah, it's not like people, you know, people ultimately are doing what they want to do. She said they eat chitlins, then expect me to take them to the hospital. Yeah, that's crazy. All right. I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy. But eventually, I mean, you keep eating that bad food, that's where you're gonna end up. Can't figure out why it is. Brother Eula was talking about that. Family eating all these things that are unclean and can't get their blood pressure together. You know. Then he talked about how his family members he had, they, you know, in the word talking about trying to get off of it so they can get more healthy. And he said it's working. So that's high. That's real high. With that, brothers and sisters, you know, it's always my prayer that you receive some kind of edification from the lessons. Try to make sure there's something on here every day. I ask you to, if you've been edified, like the video. All praise the Most High. Like the video, because then it could be spread to more places. Again, I'm not trying to monetize. Again, all praise the Most High. Peace to everybody that's listening. Yeah, it's supposed to be. That's supposed to be no 180. Yeah, that's high. That's real high. So, and I want to say this too. You know, if you like you say you living with them, and you might feel alone. Like the sister said, she lived with them. They horrible. You know, they could be like my own mama kicked me out of the house when I wasn't dealing with Christmas and all this stuff. She kicked me out of the house for it. So you know, she said, "Why don't you party like you used to?" You kicked me out the house for that, for not dealing in paganism. So you know, yeah, Caribbean don't celebrate that. Yeah, right. They celebrate it in Canada, though. Canada and the United States. But my point was, you might feel alone, but you really not, because you see all these people on here. There's a whole lot of people, but these people on here, they going through the same thing in regard to you know, being outside of the world, and that is those of the faith. That's, you know, in one with Christ. That's what happens. You know, so you ain't no pussyfooting when it comes to that. You got to be firm in what you believe, okay? Because it is an uncomfortable place to be on the outside, especially with family members. These people you know in all your life, these are closest people in your life. Like one sister say, they in your family, is in her household, live with them. But, you know, understand, see, this is the time to strengthen your faith. Things like this build your faith. You get strengthened. You know, I feel uncomfortable at first, but now I don't give a, you know what, about anything anybody's saying. On the job, you know, at family events, I don't care. I know people be talking, you know, oh, he crazy. That why they sit there waiting for Santa Claus. I'm crazy. So, but I don't care. And the more you do that, it's good because you strengthen your faith for the terrible times to come when you really gonna be tested. Because not going to Thanksgiving dinner is not a test, really. You know, not going, you know, not celebrating Christmas and being a, you know, some people embarrassed by it. They know it's true, but then, the truth is not to celebrate. It's false. It's a false day, but then the whole world is doing it. So now you like the eyeball. You the eye man, you the eye woman. But hey, look how they did Christ. And that's so you should understand that. That's why I said, so it's important that you are strengthening your faith and to know that people are just like you in a position you might feel by yourself, even if you're in a position where nobody around you is keeping the Sabbath, you're not in an area where you can go and be a part of a congregation physically, you know, understand that you're not alone, that people all over this planet really are still doing the same thing that you doing, that had the same struggles that you have, had the same horrible family that you have. All right. So keep the faith. That's for everybody. Keep the faith. And with that, brothers and sisters, peace to you, brother Albert, and to your wife as well. And peace to everybody on here. May God bless you and pray that you continue to grow in the faith and in your knowledge of his word. And with that, I thank you for your time.